Ladies and gentlemen.
I want to know, can you find your mind?
Welcome to Love Your Brain.
Hello, beautiful people. This is Eric.
Hey, everybody, this is Dave. Welcome to Love Your Brain.
What are we on? Episode 6 now.
Episode 6. How are you today, Eric?
I'm doing all right, Dave. Well, if I'm being honest, I didn't get much sleep last night. And, we were actually talking about this, how sensitive you can become when you get older to the things that didn't really bother you when you were younger. And so I am very clear that at my age right now, which is 45, sleep is really important. And if I don't get a lot of sleep, I'm just not in the best shape. I'm not on my A game. But I'm excited about the podcast tonight. So right now I'm doing well. How are you, Dave?
I tell you, I'm dragging.
Yeah.
Dragging.
Dragon, do you breathe fire too?
What?
Oh, dude, that was like a Dave joke. I just totally threw a Dave joke back in.
Well, this is about what I'm about to say is how slow and off I am.
Yes.
Having trouble getting words, right word.
Mm-hmm.
So a storm came through. As we've said before, I get migraines, and I'm really affected by barometric pressure moves. And this massive storm comes through, and that's actually how we started talking about how sensitive we are.
Yeah.
And so with any luck, this caffeine will help, and I'll talk normal. And if not, I'll be reaching for words and I'm making up some real stupid crap.
Either way, it's going to be entertaining, and I'm looking forward to it. And so Dave and I have been talking about.
Hold on, I wanted just to say something.
You go, dude. What do you?
You know,
we're
watching the intro.
Yeah.
And it never ceased to get a kick out of the fact that the little blurb that Goffstown puts up, the town of Goffstown disavows us entirely. Like whatever these
weirdos are talking about, we have nothing to do with it.
That warms my heart.
It does. You like
really
that.
do that.
Yeah.
I do like that.
Nice. So what I was saying is, Dave and I have decided that this podcast, we are going to do a continuation of another podcast where we were talking about addiction.
Yeah. So episode 4 was part 1 on our addiction. And for the first time ever, we're going to keep our promise and finish what we were talking about, which
That's right.
We promised to do multiple times. But this time, I think we were both very dedicated to this particular topic. I know it's wreaked havoc in my life, in my extended life, in my families, and my family's families, certainly through family history. And I grew up in Nashua into the 70s and 80s. I graduated high school in the mid 80s. It was, drug and alcohol abuse, like, movies like Fast Time at Ridgemont High weren't really exaggerations. It was a totally different view.
Right.
Coming out of the 70s and alcohol and drugs, especially drugs, because, as kids, nobody asked you for an ID when you bought a joint off them. Right?
Yeah.
And so it became far more accessible in that way. Although this is also back in the day when you could hang around the corner of any store and ask some dude to go buy you some beer.
Right.
That was pretty common too.
Very, very different now.
And so, coming into it that way, the world to me, the movies are on. You got Fast Times at Ridgemont High. You got Up in Smoke, Cheech and Chong.
Dave's not here.
No, man, I'm Dave. And it made it seem as though it was almost expected, or a rite of passage.
It was almost like a glorification of it, so that it gave us an excuse to be a part of it.
Have you ever smoked pot yet?
Right.
I mean, it would never be the word "yet" was almost always there because the assumption was it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Or at least that's how it seemed to me.
Now, I like that you're bringing up rite of passage, because I actually remember when I first drank alcohol, it was almost like I was creating the ceremony of a rite of passage where I bought my dad's favorite beer. We even got his Vantage. I got his Vantage Ultralight cigarettes. So it's like without even realizing, like I was stepping into like
ultralights,
being as much of embodying my dad as I could. Right. And I did it without even knowing. And I think, that happens a lot. But yeah, rite of passage.
I'm going to tell you the first time that I remember getting drunk. I can't say the first time I drank because I remember having, sips of alcohol at small, gatherings like Christmas or something like that as a kid. But my grandfather had died. So I had to be about probably 10, 11, something like that. And my uncle had a pool table in his basement, a nice regulation size pool table, and he had a fridge with a keg in it. And that was in his basement. And when my grandfather died, now both of my grandfathers died as a result of alcoholism. My maternal and my paternal grandfathers. The maternal grandfather died exacerbated diabetes because, he wouldn't stop.
Yeah.
And this grandfather died, in complete organ failure because he wouldn't stop. And so now there's no money left, and they're sitting there going over the bills. You pay this, I'll pay this, you pay this. And my dad had to take me with him. I don't remember why. You guys mind if I go play pool? Yeah, go ahead. Went downstairs. At some point, I don't remember how, I must have asked if I could have a beer. My father said yes. I took that to mean I can keep drinking them.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. At some point, my dad came downstairs, and I was falling all over. And he was like, "Oh, son of a bitch." So he stuffs me in the car, and he gives me this speech how I have to walk and look normal going into the house, or my mother will kill me. And I think I took like 2 steps out of the car, and I saw my mother running out of the house. What the hell's wrong with you?
And how old were you?
I was probably 10 or 11.
Yeah.
And, this was not, it wasn't accidental, by any stretch of the imagination. Like the moment I had a beer in me, man, loved the feeling so much that I wanted more of it.
Same. And for me, the first time that I ever drank, it was quite a ceremony. Not only did I consume the, what was it? Michelob Ultra? Yeah. What were those called?
I don't know. I wouldn't drink something like that.
I don't know. Buddy.
Barely beer,
I can't even remember. That's not a bad thing. But we also hit a big old bottle of wine. And I blacked out the first time I drank. And I just remember waking up in the bathroom at my friend's house. And there was probably a couple inches of vomit on the floor. And
awesome.
I just remember thinking it was the coolest thing ever. And I was ready and raring to get some more alcohol that night.
Yeah.
And that it's just, it's.
Remember the first time you found out that if you did do that, the headache went away?
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
I want to actually say something about what we're talking about right now. What we're talking about is abuse.
Oh, great.
Right. This is
Yes.
this is a podcast on addiction currently.
Right.
And we're discussing what is abuse, right? Because there's a big difference between overdoing it and being addicted to it.
That's right.
Yep.
And
whether the goal for abuse is accidental, on purpose, whatever, abuse being using it beyond recommended amounts.
Mm-hmm.
So if I think I had said something about prescription dyslexia last time.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is the take one pill every 4 hours, or if you're using abuse, it's take 4 pills every 1 hour.
Or how about as needed? I need
As
it every
needed.
hour.
Well, I might need it later, and I don't want it to get worse.
Right.
So yeah, that's abuse we're discussing.
Would you agree with the statement that abuse is kind of synonymous with high risk behavior? Same thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to put that out there.
Well,
Yeah.
we talked about risk last time too, where there's in the way that you have different types of risk with abuse. For example, long-term risks like addiction is a long-term risk when you abuse, right? We talked about you got a level at which you get before your tolerance, right? And if you continue to exceed your tolerance, you need more of the substance to get the effect if you're seeking the effect. And then that rises up and up and up until we go over that threshold of addiction. When to the point where you're suddenly one day, but okay, yeah. So what was your question?
Yeah. You already answered it, dude. We're good. And then you went off.
Yeah, no, I was.
We
I
do that, guys.
I actually had a point, though. I swear to God. But go on.
We were getting into what we were just discussing, which is high risk
Right. Yeah.
and abuse versus real addiction.
And there's the other types of risk are the more immediate ones.
Right.
Smacking your head on the ground, getting arrested,
Right.
overdosing. Those are very immediate risks. So abuse entertains both types, right? Because large amounts of alcohol become too much for your body to process, and it takes a while, which is why getting sober will take a while if you drink a lot, because there's no way to sober up a drunk other than time.
Right. We used to think coffee would work, but that just made it
I mean,
way worse.
it just makes you awake,
You're better off to let them sleep, not wake them up.
And so, but the thing with that is that you've got long-term risks just from the fact that you're putting large amounts of really what is a poison in the body.
Well, alcohol is literally a carcinogen. I mean, it is poison.
It is.
Yeah.
And but it's also got beneficial things to it, right? I mean, we can use alcohol beneficially in other ways, such as medical and
Right.
So, God, I am going to do that.
Yeah, no, you're good because I got you back, man. We're good to go.
It's going to be fun. It's the two types of risks that I was just talking about. We got those immediate ones and we got those long-term ones. And so, yeah, I would say that that abuse, drug, alcohol, or other things, social media, pornography, food, there's a lot of different areas that we're trying to cover when we're talking about addictions.
Right. It's not just drugs and alcohol.
But abusive use of any of those leads to high risk, that leads to possible more problems down the line.
And I remember when I first realized that, just because somebody is drinking a lot doesn't mean they're an alcoholic. It also doesn't mean that they're not progressively working their way toward that threshold, as I say. Because once you cross over that threshold, you're kind of in. Like,
it does seem in terms of addiction, you can't really go backwards.
Yeah.
There are different formats of cleaning somebody up where they introduce low risk use again. There's others where it's complete abstinence.
Yeah.
I won't endorse either one. Actually, I can personally say what I do, which is that in some areas that I have no control, it's abstinence.
Same.
Like I've come to realize there are areas of my life where I can't stop once I start.
Right.
Almost anything, alcohol is one, fudge stripe cookies are another.
Fudge stripe cookies.
Fucking can't stop eating those things.
I can't keep goodies at my house. I'm one of those
Yeah.
people, dude. I'm one of those people, and this runs in my family. And I'm sure it applies to addiction, but of course it does. But like, if I wake up late at night and I'm just craving carbs and sugar. If I have nothing in the house, I'm good to go. But let's say there's a
Box of Pop-Tarts.
let's say there's a chocolate cake on the counter all day long, complete self-control, not going to touch it. I wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm eating the whole thing.
You know, interestingly enough, I get carb cravings on migraines too. Like usually before or after, I can't remember which right now because I'm mid migraine, but I will get these super carb cravings and all of a sudden I'll just want to eat a bunch of fried stuff and which also speaks to changes in the brain, right?
Right.
You know, now here's a question for you. You get up in the morning, how soon do you grab your phone?
Right away. And here's my bullshit. I got to look at the time.
Right?
But you know that's not what it is. Yes.
Do you have alerts on the outside of your phone?
Do I have alerts?
On the sleep screen? Do you allow alerts to show up there, like text alerts and stuff?
No.
See, I don't either.
No, I don't.
It helps me not go into the phone as often.
Right. No, it is so sad though that is so what I've been trying to do lately is at least get on my knees and pray before I look at my phone, or I'll even postpone it to, after I have coffee and I'm doing something else. Right. But yes, that is what my brain wants me to do is go look at my phone.
I watch my family. I see the same thing in every single
Why
one
is
of them.
that, Dave? I mean, it's something we talked about in the last episode about addiction, but what is that?
I mean, that right there is that it's an extension of the self, right? That my phone is now an extension of me. People have attached, this is just my perspective of it, but people have attached themselves to this. And what's the first thing somebody says when they lose it? My life is on that thing.
Oh, I see people flip out.
Yeah, and people will lose their shit because their life is on that thing. I mean, do you have any idea how much stuff I've got on mine? That most of it can just be restored, right? But there's just all of these little things, recordings of my kids and pictures. But then I've also got all kinds of weather implements so I can monitor it. So I know when the migraine's coming. Not that I can do anything about it, but
Yeah.
But the phone itself, now getting off of Facebook it's amazing how much I picked it up anyway for no goddamn reason. I can actually happily say now I will have whole portions of a day go by where I'll forget where I put it.
Wow.
It's taken a long time to get
I
there.
have not had that.
Yeah, it's taken a long time to get there.
Yeah.
It helps when nobody calls you.
That's good, Dave. Yeah. Yeah. It's
So, because I'll use that as a segue to talk about people, right? Because we go back to that fast times at Ridgemont High, Cheech and Chong time in my life, and everybody around me, at the very least, was drinking and smoking pot, at the very least. Then there was the people who were using psychedelics, and it was 70s going to 80s, so you had a lot of cocaine in there, and et cetera, et cetera. But the bottom line is most people I knew were using something, even if it was on a Friday night at a party only. And so getting drunk at 10 or 11 seemed totally normal to me.
same.
All right, funny story. My brother's going to love me for saying this one. So the first time I get high, we're walking to the dance at the junior high, okay? And I'm with my older brother and his friends. And we get about halfway there, and they stop, and somebody pulls out a bag of pot and a pipe, and they pack it full, and they light it, and they start passing it around. And everybody's standing in a circle. I'm standing there, and it gets to me, and my brother looks at me and goes, "Take a hit." What? He's like, take a hit of it. I'm like, well, I don't want to. He's like, just take a hit. Like, why? He's like, because then if you tell on us, we can tell on you.
There you go.
I was like, so I took a hit,
Yep.
right? And that's all he wanted me to do was take one. Pipe came back around. I never left the circle. And the goal was to smoke the entire bag.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was my first introduction. Right. And so, but the point is about social norms. You know, we can talk a lot about peer pressure. I've never actually met a drug pusher.
Yeah. Yeah. Peer pressure. I remember when I was growing up in the 80s, the way that they depicted peer pressure was like this. Hey, kid, do this. Everyone else is doing it.
Actually, it's exactly the story I just told you about my brother, I think.
Right.
But
well, he was using that as
but nobody,
leverage.
Nobody was like, here, kid, the first one's free.
No.
Nobody ever wanted to give me free
Real
stuff.
peer pressure is unsaid culture. Real peer pressure is when you're when you're around other people that are doing it consistently, subconsciously and consciously, you are more inclined to also participate in that activity. That's peer pressure.
We've had this giant experiment take place on the human race with social media, and you realize how divided, for example, the United States political culture has been, and it happens along social lines, and it becomes this is the way I was raised, so this is the way I'm going to think.
Yeah.
Or they find that people actually, when it comes to exercising and staying in shape, is that the more you hang out with people who exercise and eat right and stuff like that, the more you're likely to. You hang out with people who are not doing that, the less likely.
Well,
you
it's that one liner. You become the people you surround yourself with.
And it turns out that that's technically what peer pressure is that we become like the people, or we attract to the people who are like us, or we become like the people who are around us.
I mean, it's one of those things. It could be, it's that gray area of.
Get into like some psychological breakdown of it.
Right.
But,
yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that the people around us influence that,
Completely.
And I did it again.
No, we're just talking about peer pressure.
Back to you, Eric.
Well, we're just talking about peer pressure. And I mean, I thought when I was younger, as in a teenager, when I was drinking and smoking pot consistently, I just assumed that every other person my age was doing what me and all my friends were doing. You know, and I was telling you earlier too, we were talking about how I remember when I first got sober in 2010, and I started being shown statistics about all the people that don't use drugs or drink, and it blew my mind. It blew my mind that I realized that I was actually a part of the smaller percentage when I thought that I was a part of like the bigger percentage.
Yeah, it's like 15 or 10 to 15% of all drinkers drink like 80% of all the alcohol. It's some insane, and it doesn't make sense if you're one of those people who has a few drinks every night. And you're like, no fucking way. No way. I'm only having, 2 beers. I have one with dinner and I have one before bed or something like that.
Yep.
And, but, the fact of the matter is that at least statistically speaking, yeah, you're right. It does have a huge influence on us. What's funny about it too is as you go along with, let's say, abuse into addiction. So one of the things that, one of the big hallmarks, I would say, of addiction, right, would you agree, would be loss of control.
I brought that up in the last episode.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. Loss of control is one of those big hallmarks of addiction.
Yeah.
Right. And so, as I would do things, or as friends of mine would use, and they would get less and less in control as the night would go on, and they'd get more drunk, or they would get more stoned, or they would sell their belongings so that they get get, more of
Right.
what I'm not doing a very good job.
No,
of this.
you're good, dude. I hear you.
But when I saw my social network, as it were, start to dwindle, because there were certain people who just didn't want to be around that. They're like, yeah, you know what? It's okay to have a couple beers around the fire.
You guys are crazy.
But you guys, like, it's fucking 2 a.m. and I got to work tomorrow.
Right. Yeah. Some people actually have a semblance of like, not control, but even the foresight of like, you know what? This is fun, but hold on a second. I got other things I got to do. And I never had that. I was like, let's go.
So the thing is my social group that I was comparing myself to, geez, everybody was drinking at least a beer or having a joint on a Friday night at a party when I was, 12 years old, became most people that I know are, when they drink, they'll go through a couple of 6-packs or they'll drink, a whole bottle of wine themselves. Like that's most people drink like that.
Yeah, I thought that too.
Right. Because at that point, the people I was around pretty much consisted of people who were drinking and using in those amounts. So that, again, still seemed normal. And as the more sane and sensible people dropped off, of course, I was only surrounded with people who were using in higher and higher and higher.
Well, you don't want to hang out with the sane, reasonable people, because then you look at your own behavior as not being okay. They're boring too. So yeah, when I'm looking back at my past, and we always made sure that crew of real hardcore partiers stuck together because it justified our behavior. Yeah. It helped validate what we were up to. Yep. That's peer pressure. That's real peer pressure.
And that throughout this whole thing, the brain is getting rewired. We talked a bunch about the reward center of the brain last time. And in fact, we talked a lot about dopamine.
Yeah.
And in the interim between recording episode 4 and recording episode 6 on addiction, I was doing some more reading and up on some stuff about dopamine. And it turns out we may not necessarily be exactly right about our impression of what dopamine is doing in the brain. Mm-hmm. In fact, neurology itself is, neurosciences are studying this. It seems, of course, that dopamine is present when the reward center of the brain is triggered. And the assumption originally was that dopamine was this rush of good feeling. But it may actually be that dopamine is an indication that the reward center has been triggered, but it may actually not be the thing that is giving the actual good feelings.
And what's giving the good feelings?
I'm not 100% sure, but I wanted to kind of throw that in there that, that's interesting. There's still plenty going on with this. And so, this is something that interests you.
We haven't
read up on the latest studies of neurotransmitters about serotonin, about dopamine, one of my favorites, oxytocin.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of oxytocin. I got 2 dogs.
Yes. Hugs too. Is that true? Hugs produce oxytocin?
Well, it depends on who's hugging you.
Well, what did I hear? Something like you got to hug someone for at least 15, 20 seconds to, help produce the oxytocin.
Well, I hung out with almost strictly hippies for.
You did a lot of hugging.
There was a lot
of hugging and cuddling, I bet too, right?
Yeah, I still make some of my friends feel a little awkward when I come up and just hug them. They're like, oh yeah, and they Frankenstein hug you,
Yeah, the awkward hug. I ask everyone nowadays. It was probably
I don't have the presence of mind to do it.
I do because it may be off topic, but I do because I started to realize that sometimes people don't want to be hugged, even though they wanted to be hugged the last time you hugged them. I think it's just for me, it's energetically proper and in integrity to ask out of compassion and, respect for someone else's space.
Yeah. And I want to be clear. I don't just out of the blue when I meet somebody run up and give them a hug. As probably as I can say about the people who are in the editing booth right now.
Yeah.
I didn't hug any one of them yet. And I have seen some of them multiple times. So I suppose there is a level at which I will hug somebody.
Dave's not a...
It's something that happens inside when I see the person.
Yes.
That prompts the
I
hug.
Still ask. I don't know. I just put that out there.
You don't ask when you hug me.
Well, you're different. I don't care if you want to hug or not, bro. That's...
So, yeah. So so back to this like rewiring of the brain that's happening, you know, as we're going through this stuff, as we're learning that, you know, we're starting to adapt to things that we see around us. We're
When you're using more and drinking more.
We're also starting to identify what things we like to do that give us the feeling we like, the ones that we don't necessarily like to do. You know, geez, this pot's great stuff. Oh, I don't like this Coke, man. I'm grinding my teeth down. You know, I don't know, whatever. But, you know, very soon you start to find what it is you like and what it is you don't like as your body seeks to, you know, here's one of the things. Many of us are feeling oriented.
Yes.
We want to feel good, right? I mean,
relief-seeking missiles is.
Well,
is
I'm just
what I
saying
used to
people
say.
in general would like to feel good. They
Right.
don't purposely usually seek to feel bad.
This is true.
Now, the definition of feeling good, of course, is completely subjective.
Very.
And some of us immediately, when we find something that gives us that extra oomph that we don't get out of everyday life, all of a sudden identify that, mark it with a bookmark and say,
Let's keep
I like
going there.
this.
Let's
I'm going to
keep
try
going.
this again.
Yeah.
And maybe often,
Yeah.
you know, and that is, again, rewiring of the brain. And the brain starts to look at things slightly different.
I think the brain starts to look at things as solutions that aren't really solutions. You know,
True.
and that's what happened with me because when I was younger, I was actually a shy kid, and you know, lacked self-esteem, self-worth. And when I first experienced alcohol, it really was like the missing link. It was the missing link to my personality. It was the way in which I could use it as a tool to be more fully self-expressed in who I thought I was. It was a tool to, you know, have the guts to go and talk to that girl or say. So it became my solution. It really did. And I think that, you know, that's a part of the rewiring of the brain is, man,
Oh, absolutely. And,
it's,
you know, and
it's
as
scary.
time goes on, you know, we talked a little bit about withdrawal before. That's the thing about withdrawal too. If you're in withdrawal from drugs or alcohol or something, well, if you're in withdrawal in general,
Right.
psychologically so even,
Yeah.
and you, for example, I'm in withdrawal from alcohol. You know, my stomach's upset, my hands are shaking, my head is pounding. Maybe I'm having visual problems. You know, I'm going into delirium tremens, and I take a drink,
There's a
and
solution.
that stops.
It stops it.
It stops it, and my brain goes, "Aha!"
There you go.
When I feel like that,
This is
and
what
I
we
do
do.
this, that will make it go away. And all of a sudden, this thing that which is of course my problem, is now my solution. And so the rest of the world is looking at me saying, geez, why can't that guy stop drinking? Can't he see how bad it's making him feel?
Right.
And that person who's drinking is saying, you don't seem to understand. I wouldn't be able to handle all that out there
Correct.
if I didn't have this.
That's right. That's right.
And it's two different worlds there. And to the outside world, it doesn't make any sense. And on the inside, that person is looking out and going, no, 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 this is the only thing that'll make me function well. This is the only thing that'll make me feel okay. You know, there's a reason why people who use heroin call it a fix.
Yeah.
Because it's a fix.
And what do they?
It's
you
the
know?
thing to fix
What
them.
do they say? I need some because I'm sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that's
I
how
was-
they get.
I was-
That's literally how the brain sees itself as getting well.
When I was
getting
visiting
that
this
next
dude
fix.
in the hospital and he was talking to me, and he's like, it's getting so bad. He's like, you know, I need 2 or 3 bags just to get back to baseline. It's like, that's not even getting high yet.
Yeah.
You know? And but the thing is, you know, what got me about that is that's how he's looking at the world too.
Right.
You know, because of course something like that, as we talked about in the last episode, is that the more rapidly something leaves your body, the more it leaves you craving to replace it. It helps accelerate addiction. And that kind of, well, now I'm no longer feeling the rush. I got to start looking for some more because I don't want to get sick again. And so you're almost instantly,
And that's what's required that's what's required, and what was required for me in terms of recovery was rewiring my brain to see that there's other solutions that I thought were the solutions for certain things that I struggled with. And so when drugs and alcohol were not a part of the equation, there was still a huge void there. And it took a long time to figure out what the new solution was that was typically more difficult, but more rewarding and healthy,
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go back a second to the withdrawal thing. So, of course, there is I know I'm going into withdrawal, so I'm going to seek to replace before I go into withdrawal. Some people, that's the way they use. They'll use in spurts. They'll go through withdrawal of some sort. They'll go back to their life. They'll use in spurts. They'll go through withdrawal.
It's a
and they'll
cycle.
continue to live that way.
It's a cycle.
There's others who will constantly use for fear of stopping, or just for in general because they don't realize that their body has gotten to that point.
Right.
And so I had a friend of mine. His name was Brian. Brian became a kindred soul to me. Like when I met him, we bound like that, and we stayed friends until he died. Died on my birthday, actually. He sent me an email saying happy birthday, and about 2-3 hours later, I got a phone call saying he had died. They had found him on the floor. He was making a cake.
Bro.
Right? Yeah. And I don't know if he was just making a cake for his wife or whatever, but the point is just like,
I think that was your cake, man.
no.
Come on, let's just.
I don't need to search for meaning necessarily on this one, but
Yeah.
So Brian, he was a heavy duty drinker, and he was working at some high up publishers, some pretty high end educational publishers, and he was an editor. And so he was always in the editing room, and everybody screaming, yelling, all kinds of stuff. And I think he might have been a bourbon drinker. And he drank and he drank and he drank. And he told me, he goes, I never wasn't drinking. He's like, because I knew what the DTs were and they scared the hell out of me. So I just didn't not drink because I didn't want to have to end up in that situation.
Right.
So that was his thinking. And we can all see that there might be a flaw or two in that drinking.
A little bit, but it also makes sense.
But he didn't see it. And then one day he was in the conference room and they were having the editing meeting and he had a heart attack. And he was forcefully separated from alcohol.
Beaten into a state of reasonableness.
No, not at all. He almost died.
Okay.
He wasn't beaten into anything. He said he woke up 2 days later strapped to a gurney, completely naked.
Damn.
Screaming and wondering who was screaming.
Screaming and wondering who was screaming.
Yes.
Wow. That's a different perspective.
Because what had happened was he had had the heart attack. He had been rushed to the hospital. And after a period of time, he started having all these physical reactions that couldn't be accounted for by the heart attack. And his wife happened to have been there, said he's a heavy drinker.
Okay.
And they were able to realize this guy's going into the delirium tremens.
Okay.
And they were treating him for withdrawal, but he was in such rough shape, they really couldn't put clothes on him for a little while.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was this like forced on withdrawal. And so there are actually many people out there who find this out the hard way, where they're daily drinkers and they don't really think they have a problem until all of a sudden one day the supply is interrupted.
And it's like, oh, wait a second.
Even people like, my own father, who was the kind of guy who always had a beer and, a couple fingers of whiskey and sitting around with his buddies and they'd just sip away at it. And it was always there until all of a sudden one day it was a problem, and in this particular case, I don't think there was any withdrawal story, but the fact of the matter is that there are people like that who just will use it regularly. And then when the supply is interrupted, or say, for example, my phone, all of a sudden we lose all power, my phone dies, I can't get to freaking Facebook. Like I have no idea what's going on. How am I supposed to get anything? My phone's not working.
Right.
The supply being interrupted creates.
I'm just thinking about when the power goes out too. And it's like, I still go around and try to turn on all the switches and I'm like, it's like, you just take things for granted, or you're not even aware of how dependent you are on certain things until they disappear, you know?
I got a little, I don't know, it pretty much is shaped like a bar of soap with a plug on it. Plug it in the wall, and it's got like a light on it. It becomes a flashlight. Well, anyway, when the power supply going into it is interrupted, it lets off an alarm and the light flashes. So I can know if my power is dead, like instantly goes off. It also turns into a flashlight then.
Perfect. That's a neat little tool, Dave. Thank you.
Yeah, I bought the thing because I was living in a house that had a sump pump that regularly overfilled if there was no power.
Oh yeah, that's not
So,
good.
yeah. So I'd have to go on bucket brigade. You know, one of the many things that did my back in. So yeah, withdrawal being this thing that, you know, whether it's not being able to access social media, whether it's alcohol, whether it is, you know, a withdrawal on heroin, I mean, sickening as hell, right? I mean, people are not able to function for long periods of time because of withdrawal. But what about addictions like, you know, food, sex?
That's a tough one. Food's a tough one.
Food and sex? Those are toughies.
Very, very well. Food more than anything. I think food is the most difficult addiction to deal with because
you have
unlike
to eat.
heroin, you don't need heroin. You
gotta
eat, but you have to eat or you're not going to survive. So that's a real tough one.
And even for people who, you know, decide to take a vow of celibacy, they struggle with it. I mean, sex is also a base human need, not as much so as food, but
right.
You know, so those become different types of addictions where there's probably more activity happening in the brain than physically. Although obviously with food there are things happening physically, but not necessarily the, oh my God, I'm into total withdrawals, I'm shaking, and I need to be, you know, put on an IV type of withdrawals.
Right.
It's a different type of thing. You know, but they're both very real addictions that people find themselves in, where all of a sudden one day they can't put down the fudge stripe cookies, or maybe I've eaten my way already through an entire chicken, you know? It was good. I'll eat the whole fucking thing.
Oh, and that's the thing too that happens a lot of the time is people get a case of the F-its. It's just like, well, here I am. I might as well keep going.
I'm already a piece of crap for doing what I did. I might as well enjoy myself tonight.
Right.
I'll let tomorrow come when it does.
That's right.
That's there's a big difference between living like there's no tomorrow and one day at a time.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah, I guess, you know, one of the other things that I guess is probably a good one to talk about too is there's this thing called state-dependent memory.
State-dependent learning. Or memory.
State-dependent memory, state-dependent learning.
I was always, that's how I remember.
It's essentially, it is when something is learned in a particular mental state, or a skill is acquired while constantly in a mental state, it is best recalled when back in that state.
Right.
Right?
I have a really funny story about this.
By all means.
Yeah. So, college. I went to Keene State College. I was in a psychology class, and it was like general psychology. And I think it was one of the first or second lectures by the professor. And at one point he said, okay, so how many people are stoned right now? And, you know, all the kids are looking around like, what is this guy talking about? He goes, no, it's okay. Don't worry. I'm not going to report you, but how many people here are high on marijuana? And the very brave few people, there was like 3 people, they raised their hand, you know, and he's like, all right, everyone give him a round of applause. And we're all like, I'm like, what is going on? This is great. And he said, he goes, so I just want you to know that if you continue to come to my class stoned, make sure you smoke a joint before every class, and make sure you study before the exam under the influence of cannabis. And everyone's like, what is this guy? Is he promoting marijuana? And what he was doing was prepping us for this lesson in state-dependent learning, which is that what Dave just said, you know, the state that you are in when you're learning something becomes dependent on that state so that you can be skillful at it and go back to it, right?
Yeah, so I mentioned playing pool, playing billiards. And I had a friend with a pool table. I had my uncle with a pool table. I played pool from little kid on up. Obviously in every different state of mind, but primarily learned it as a kid, so I was straight.
Yeah.
Right? I'm still pretty damn good after a couple of warm-up shots.
Oh, yeah?
Jump right back in.
Right on.
It's just a skill, right?
Yeah.
Darts, on the other hand, I didn't start playing darts till I was in high school, and I used to play them over at my friend Andy's house while we were drinking.
Right?
Then we got
good while you were drinking.
We got real good. We ended up getting a team. We found a bar to sponsor us. We ended up winning the first place that year.
Yeah.
We took first place. We had to level up already after the very first year. I don't drink anymore. I can't play darts for shit.
Right. Well, and you think about the implications of people that learned how to communicate with like other people, or learned how to approach a woman, or learned how to be funny in the state of that. And now that's gone. You have to relearn, you know. So when we're talking about the rewiring of the brain, there's rewiring of the brain that brings you into addiction. And then once you're out of addiction, there's that whole process once again.
And it unfortunately, you know, if I wanted to I still remain pretty good at billiards, but if I wanted to get better at darts, I would have to start over. You know, I have to relearn the skill to be good anyway.
Yeah, I remember.
I mean, I can still hit the board.
I actually remember a story that someone was talking about. Their wife, I think it was their wife, got sober, and she didn't know how to get onto the interweb anymore. Like she had to relearn how. This is back in like dial-up AOL stuff. You know what I mean? I'm kind of aging myself.
You've got mail.
You've got mail. But yeah, you know, people. I think the simple lesson is that, like, you know, people have to almost relearn how to be and how to live, and isn't that what recovery is?
You know, I'm looking at a list of some things that we wanted to talk about, and, you know, we haven't really even finished, let alone getting into what happens on the other side of recovery, on the other side of addiction. So I think we're going to have to go into a third episode.
Which is what we had, you know.
But I really want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the states of change.
I think that's for the next episode because it has to do with the other side.
See, now that's what you did about the other thing. We're still waiting to hear about heart space, man.
We're going to have an episode that's just all the leftover friggin', you know, avoided things
Studio
by Eric.
outtakes.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. No, I honestly, man, I think that the stages of change are for the next episode because it has to do with the other side of addiction. Like it applies to that actual topic. So I would rather do it then.
All right.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, at this point, we're coming up on wrapping up almost roughly on time.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we've talked a lot about loss of control. We've talked about withdrawal. I want to say one other thing about loss of control is it's not necessarily, let's say I say, you know what, hon, I'm going to go only and have 2 beers tonight. Mm-hmm. And I go out and I have my 2 beers. I'm a good boy. Pat myself on the back, go home. Next night I go out, I'm only going to have 2 beers and I have like 12.
Yeah.
And then the next night I have like 8. Mm-hmm. But like a week later I have like 2. And my mind will fixate on the night, you know, Thursday night I went out, I had 2 just like I said I was.
The numbers game, dude.
Right?
Yep.
But I can't reliably, with any sense of accuracy, say what I will do because I no longer have control once I start using it.
All bets are off.
All bets are off. So, and that's, I'm, you know, I may sit down and start eating a little bit, and then the munchies might just carry me over. I just had something salty. Now I need something sweet. Now I need something crunchy. Now I need some ice cream, and they carry you through.
Yeah.
And so loss of control, not only in that direction in terms of how much, but it's also, like I said, when and how often. I can't say reliably that I will be able to only have 2 drinks a day every day, or I will reliably only eat, a sensible breakfast, lunch, dinner, or I will reliably only go on and check the news on my phone and maybe look at my email and put it back down. God, that's an expensive piece of equipment just to use for that.
Yeah.
And so maybe I ought to install some other stuff. But anyway, there's this loss of control that happens. And then, of course, there's withdrawal, whether it be physical, like we were talking about with like alcohol and benzodiazepines. I just want to say, when it comes to withdrawal,
there's 2 big ones.
From opiates,
you're going to be okay.
You're going to wish you were dead.
Yeah, but you're going to be okay.
You're going to be okay.
You're going to be okay, guys.
Alcohol,
be careful.
benzos.
Be careful. Anaphylactic shock, convulsions. Yeah.
They can actually kill you.
They can kill you. Benzodiazepines and alcohol are, the highest risk to withdraw from.
And it's funny because they are in widest use too.
Wow, benzos especially.
Yeah, alcohol's no slouch.
Let's go to the it's everywhere. It's everywhere. But yeah, those 2. That's interesting, isn't it? Those are widely used, widely prescribed. Yet they are the 2 most deadly things to withdraw from. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think it was just important. I wanted to kind of get the doom and gloom out of the way, because the thing is regardless if it's physical or psychological dependence or addiction, it's not the end.
It's not the end, and I'm looking forward to the next episode where we really get into that and start talking about, what recovery can be and what's on the other side of addiction, because there's a whole other world, and there's a lot of beauty about it because Dave and I are both living in it.
It's I mark my belly button birthday, and I mark my other birthday.
Right on. Yeah. Well, this was a good
because
episode.
That was when I changed. I mean, I was a different me.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I completely hear you on that, man. Yeah.
But without it, we wouldn't have met either. So
that's true. So I am grateful for that.
I'm grateful for you.
I'm grateful for you, Dave. Good episode. Thank you all for listening.
Do I have to hug you? Do I have to ask you?
I'm not. Hug you? You never have to ask it, and I will force a hug on you when I feel it necessary. So beware. Dave and I look forward to the next episode where we talk more about this really important topic of addiction and also recovery.
Thank you very much, and we'll catch you next time on Love Your Brain.
Thanks for listening, and until next time. Wrong setting.
That's better. Thanks for listening, and until next time, don't forget to love your brain.